Hello, America. While I'm away, here I am on tape recording, but this is a very important programming we're doing while I'm away, the Best of series for 2021. You'll notice I'm wearing the same jacket and shirt. Yes, I am. Same haircut. Anyway, one of the great human tragedies that occurred this past year was the debacle in Afghanistan. Do you realize there's still hundreds of American citizens over there, and the number keeps growing, and this administration keeps censoring the information? It was a humiliating defeat by the United States top brass, not the men and women in the military who do what they're told. You know, they like to talk about how many people they brought back to the United States, 120,000 Afghanis. Well, that's all well and good, but almost none of them had nothing to do with fighting shoulder to shoulder with our brave soldiers. Absolute disaster. So this was an important part of what we talked about and reported on this year. So I want you to check it out. Here's part one, the Afghanistan debacle.
This is where freedom rings.
If you believe in America, if you believe in the Constitution empowers us. It's a new day. America's back. America's back, and America's going to get strong again. We're going to defend America, and we're going to defend our interests.
Liberty's voice, Levin TV.
I want to play you something that shows you two things, at least. One is a real reporter, Matt Lee of the Associated Press. He's been there for many, many years, Republican and Democrat administrations. It's hard to pull a blanket over his head. It really is. And number two, you have this guy, Ned, who is the spokesperson at the State Department and for the Biden administration. They have this habit. When their policies are falling apart, of pointing to the Trump administration. You know, the Trump administration did this, they kind of locked us in and so forth and so on. Well, Matt Lee will have none of it. So I want you to check this out. Go.
I don't understand three things. One, I don't understand how you're able to make this claim that the Taliban actually want international acceptance and aid when there's nothing in their history that suggests that they do. I've asked you about this before, and there's no good answer other than, oh, well, a bunch of them are in Doha talking. But that doesn't mean anything. They never wanted internet or cared about. They were perfectly happy when Pakistan was the only country on the planet that recognized them. That's number one. Number two, the argument that you guys inherited an agreement with the Taliban that the previous administration concluded and that you had no choice. I don't understand that either. This administration inherited plenty from the previous administration that it absolutely reversed. Are you saying that you're not you're not confident in your negotiating skills, that you could have renegotiated with that you couldn't have renegotiated a deal with the Taliban, and that are you saying that the president in fact didn't want to take troops out, didn't want to withdraw? And then lastly, the thing I don't understand, well, maybe not understand, but you don't want to talk about the historic analogy that Saeed made to Vietnam. Let's go next door to Cambodia. Are you familiar at all with the letter that Sirik Matak wrote to John Gunther Dean, who was the U.S. ambassador to Cambodia in April of 1975? If you're not familiar
it's been
with
a while.
I suggest you familiarize yourself with it, because it may end up being sadly prescient. But if you could answer the first two, that
Sure.
would be great. Thanks.
Well, on your second question, Matt, I think you're actually confusing different things here. These are apples and oranges. Yes, we changed quite a few U.S. policies across a number of fronts, but I think you would be hard-pressed to find an international agreement that the United States signed on to during the last administration that this administration has jettisoned, done away with. This is the point that we have made in any number of
How about
different...
the Geneva Protocol on the anti-abortion stuff?
This was the point that we have made on any number of steps about the importance of the durability of American foreign policies, American foreign policy across administrations.
How about the agreements with the Northern with Mexico and the Northern Triangle? Those are international agreements that you guys jettisoned.
These are, Matt. No, I think
That's
you
true.
just challenged me to come up with an international agreement that the previous administration signed that you guys have walked away from, and I just gave you, I think, three.
Maybe it was three. That's what I mean. This guy's a serious reporter. You know, I'm not sure any administration loves him, but he calls the shots as he sees them. And what he's saying about Cambodia and other things, what he's saying is, do you see what's going on in Afghanistan? That the Taliban are taking the country over quickly? Do you see that the government that's there has come to the United States, spoken with our president, and said, please don't leave, but certainly don't leave this way. Everything's going to collapse. Do you see people are trying to get their spouses and their kids out of that country now? Do you see that people who have assisted the United States all have a death target on their foreheads, are trying to get out of that country, especially interpreters who help the United States military? And do you see how little coverage this is getting? I mean, that gentleman's with AP. He's been hammering away. But you look at our border, you look at Afghanistan, you look at Biden's willingness to work with the Iranian regime, the way it slaughters and treats its own people, and the way it has backed Syria and the mass murder, what's going on there. You see how he when it comes to Xi, they don't ever talk about what's happening to the Uyghurs and so forth, how the communist Chinese are pushing us around. How do you call this ideology or this man or this administration compassionate and humane? People here and around the world are doing much worse as a result of the Democrat Party and as a result of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That is a fact. Joe Biden, some of the media are saying, well, Donald Trump, when it comes to Afghanistan, he set the deadline, and Donald Trump wanted to do the same thing, and this would have happened under Donald Trump. First of all, what kind of commander-in-chief talks this way? What kind of commander-in-chief talks this way? He's been president for 7 months. They've had 7 months to plan whatever he wants to do. The problem with Joe Biden is he's stubborn and he's stupid. And so he got very ideological about this. And first he set September 11th as a deadline. What kind of a fool does that? Then obviously he was told that doesn't go over well with the American people. So then he moves it up to August 31, I think it was. August 31. So the enemy's sitting there and says, okay. I want to tell you about Donald Trump. Remember Obama and Biden and ISIS? They formed a caliphate under Obama and Biden. And Biden was put in charge of dealing with ISIS. And so Trump tells his generals, wipe them out so we can get the hell out of there. And he wipes them out. Then Trump says, I want to get out of Syria. Now we still have a force in Syria of a couple thousand. But he wanted to pull most troops out. But what did Syria do? They started bombing their own people with gas canisters. They were gassing their own people. What did Trump do? He attacked them. Because he saw the inhumanity of it and he wouldn't put up with it. He didn't turn and run and say, it's not our problem anymore. We've been here long enough and so forth and so on. He attacked them and he warned them. You do it again, we'll attack you again. We still have some forces in Iraq, including intelligence forces, because we need to have some forward personnel and forward intelligence to protect the United States of America. You would think we would learn this after 9/11. I hear these isolationists, these protectionists, these people say, we've been to war 20 years, it's long enough. We're going to be at war as long as we're the United States of America, somewhere, somehow, some way. And it's not our fault. Some things are done more competently than others, but we're not looking for war. We were attacked from Afghanistan. What kind of a country would we be? And I hear we should have just wiped out Osama bin Laden and left. Well, wiping out Osama bin Laden, that doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't follow in their footsteps and so forth. It's just amazing to hear this kind of talk. Now, that doesn't mean also that you have to be Lindsey Graham and John McCain and send in, 2 million troops. That's stupid too, particularly given what we know Afghanistan is. Do you remember a couple of years back when the Taliban, while talking to the United States, though, kept organizing more and more attacks against us and the Afghan army? You remember that? And some massive bomb was dropped on their heads. You guys remember that? It was the biggest conventional bomb that we had, the biggest conventional weapon we have. It blew out their tunnels. It blew at the top of a mountain off. It killed like 7, 8, 9, 10,000 of their troops. We don't know the exact number, but they were amassing for an attack. Does that sound like Donald Trump would be sitting back while the Taliban are taking one provincial capital after another and then surrounding Kabul? We have 10,000 citizens in Kabul right now. It's not clear how they're going to get out of there. What do you think Donald Trump would do? You think he'd be Joe Biden? You think he'd be at Camp David? Of course not. So let's put that to an end right now. Right now, whether it's our southern border, whether it's our economic system, Joe Biden is a pandemic. It was Trump who cut off the oil pipeline to the Russians. It was Biden who gave it back. It was Trump who cut off the Iranians and were sinking their economy. It's Biden who gave it back. It was Trump who stood up to the communist Chinese and started to squeeze their economy for what they were doing, not only economically to us, but in the South China Sea. And now they roll all over Biden. So let's not make these false comparisons between Trump and Biden. It's hilarious when they make these comparisons. Biden is a disaster in every possible respect, as we knew when we opposed him early on. Now here's Biden. He's staring squarely behind his decision, he says. That shows you how stupid this man is. Donald Trump, like any good commander-in-chief, has to be flexible. Of course, you have principles, you have purposes, you have strategies. Your tactics have to be flexible. Your timing has to be flexible. And when you see the horror that's taking place, and he knows better than anyone, he's being told more than we know about the horrific conditions where they're going door to door, murdering people, raping women, torturing people, these child marriages, and these are barbarians. These are throwbacks to the 7th and 8th century. That's what the Taliban is. They're throwbacks. And to say things like, he wouldn't have done anything differently, or I stand squarely behind my decision, that is unacceptable. This is an impeachable offense as far as I'm concerned. And then he flies back to Camp David. Go ahead.
I stand squarely behind my decision. After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces.
So here's where I seem to disagree with a lot of my brothers and sisters. If I were to tell you today that we could send in 2,500 non-combat military personnel, use federal contractors to make sure that the Afghan Air Force, such as it is kept up with mechanical, up-to-date technology and so forth, and the parts, and that we would keep our major air base there, which was totally protected, by the way, not only by the elements, but also by us. So we could strike if we needed to. And that by doing that, the Taliban would be effectively neutralized. If I told you we could do that today, you'd think I'm nuts, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you guys? And that's exactly what we had done. That's exactly what existed several months ago. I don't know why we did this. Well, we've been at war 20 years. That's long enough. Being at war 20 years, we're in a state of war still with North Korea, and we have 28,000 troops in South Korea. We have tens of thousands of troops in Europe, major air bases in Europe, naval bases in Europe, in order to neutralize and counter what would be Russia, and now that would include China. What would happen if we removed all those forces? What do you think would happen? The face of the globe would change immediately, and we'd be in dire, dire straits. So what's happened now? There's 20 years, I keep hearing, even some of our friends will do it. 20 years is long enough. 20 years is long enough. We're really not fighting. And here's the thing. It's the Afghan soldiers who are carrying the brunt of the battle since 2014, when we removed all of our combat troops. They've had 50 to 70,000 casualties, deaths. That's a lot. And you hear men and women who have fought side to side with these individuals saying, it is outrageous what's being said about the Afghan military. We took their air power away. We closed our major air base in the middle of the night without telling them, and the Taliban rolled in and took over everything that was there. We pulled our federal contractors out so their helicopters couldn't be maintained. And then we say, go fight. Do you think Donald Trump would do these things? Do you think any serious commander-in-chief would do these things? No. And Biden says he stands by his decision. It is shocking that he would stand by this decision. And by the way, China's thrilled he stands by his decision. Russia's thrilled. North Korea's thrilled. Iran's thrilled. All of our enemies are chortling. They can't believe this. China's moving in immediately to make an alliance with the Taliban. They don't intend to go to war with them. They're going to try and make an alliance with them. Iran, the same thing. Even though Iran hates the form of Islam that's practiced in Afghanistan, doesn't matter. They have a common enemy, us. And as I said on the radio yesterday, and as other people are saying today, our border's wide open. We've just created a massive terror state. The Taliban now controls more of Afghanistan than they did prior to 9/11. Well, we're tired of war. They're not tired of war. They don't look at 20 years. They're not looking at the calendar. They could give a damn. They could give a damn. You know, Jake Tapper, I'm no great fan of Jake Tapper at CNN, but he had a good interview. Better than some of these other cable shows, I might add, of the Secretary of State Blinken, who is as weak as they get. The Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, and the Secretary of Defense, just such lightweights, such backbenchers. And they're retreads from the first two from the Obama administration. And this is what you get. So during State of the Union, Tapper presses Blinken on Afghanistan. Now, Tapper's written a book about, I believe it was Afghanistan, and some of the fighting men and so forth. So he does have a soft heart for these people. So let's see what happened. Go ahead.
The idea that President Biden ordered 2,500 service members out and now is sending up to 5,000 service members back in, does that not on its face show that the exit was ineptly planned? And again, look, you told me a few months ago on this program that you thought it was entirely likely that the Taliban would be taking over the country. But President Biden, just last month, quote, "The likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely." He was wrong.
Jake, what we've done, what the president has done, is make sure that we were able to adjust to anything happening on the ground.
Now wait a minute. The president has made sure we can adjust to anything happening on the ground. Is that the way it looks, ladies and gentlemen? Do they think we're stupid? Well, some of the country is stupid. After all, they did vote for Biden. But you get the point? Now, these are the guys out there spinning now. Go ahead.
The fact that he sent additional forces in, we had those forces at the ready, fully prepared to go in the event that this moved in a direction where we needed forces in place.
Those forces are being brought in from the Middle East. They're always ready. We had those forces ready. We had them ready. They're ready at a moment's notice, or if we bring them in from Germany and so forth. That's why we have these forward bases to begin with. But to say that that's why we had these forces ready because we know it would deteriorate so fast, Biden said we didn't know it would deteriorate so fast. In fact, the military leadership has been leaking to their favorite media outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post saying it went much worse and much faster than we thought. But here's the Secretary of State. Go.
Sure that our personnel was safe and secure, to ensure also that we could do everything possible to bring out of Afghanistan those Afghans most at risk. That's exactly what we're doing.
Why didn't you have the troops in there and then let that happen first before taking them out?
Again, I come back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, which is that status quo was not sustainable.
Yes, it was sustainable. You shut down the air base, and we needed air power to keep these lowlives, these thugs away from us. That's what we've been doing successfully for a couple of years now. You pull out 2,500 military personnel. NATO's caught off guard. There's 6,000 or 7,000 troops. They're now trying to pull them out as fast as they can. You pulled out the intel. You pulled out the federal contractors who were working on the Afghan Air Force, such as it is in their helicopters. And you left our civilians behind, you idiot. Over at MSLSD, you had Nicole Wallace, a former Romney, McCain Republican operative who's swung hard left, changed her party, and by doing that gets paid a lot of money for having no audience. But she's enormously stupid, as are most of the people there. And she was praising President Biden's speech, that 95% of the people will agree with everything he has said, and they're completely out of it. Completely out of it. And Brian Williams, who had to go on sabbatical for 6 weeks because he's a liar and delusional, talking about being in Iraq and being shot at when he wasn't shot at, just tells you he's kind of very Biden-like. He can't fawn enough over Joe Biden, too. It's really incredible. And that speech is like the worst speech any president's given in American history. I take responsibility, but it's Trump's fault. It's the fault of the Afghan people. It's the fault of the 4 presidents. It's a fault. But I take full responsibility. You know, one of those deals. But here's Brian Williams, and he's in exchange with a U.S. Army veteran who also was a CIA operative, Matt Zeller, who is a paid contributor to MSNBC, but was listening to all of this and would have none of it. Go.
Matt Zeller, former first lieutenant during the war in Afghanistan, former combat advisor with Afghan security forces, co-founder of No One Left Behind, a veterans organization that offers services to former Afghan and Iraqi interpreters who resettle here in the United States. Mr. Zeller, it's almost ironic now to state the name of the organization you founded, given what we're watching go on, though I'm curious to hear your reaction of this consequential speech by the American president. Didn't run from it. He owned it. He owned his decision. He owned the fact that, as he put it, the buck stops with him.
I hope he gets to own their deaths, too.
Whoa. Boy, that was a curveball, wasn't it? I hope he owns their deaths, too. Go ahead.
I feel like I watched a different speech than the rest of you guys. I was appalled. There was such a profound, bold-faced lie in that speech. The idea that we planned for every contingency. I have been personally trying to tell this administration since it took office. I've been trying to tell our government for years that this was coming. We sent them plan after plan on how to evacuate these people. Nobody listened to us. They didn't plan for the evacuation of our Afghan wartime allies. They're trying to conduct it now at the 11th hour. The thing that they were most concerned about was the optics of a chaotic evacuation. Well, they got exactly what they were most concerned of by failing to do what was right when we could have done it. We had all the people and equipment in place to be able to save these people months ago, and we did nothing. I'm appalled that he thinks we only need to take 2,000 people. There's 86,000 people who are currently left behind in Afghanistan alone. We've identified all of them for the government. I have no idea why he claims that people don't want to leave Afghanistan. I have a list of 14,000 names right now of people who want to get out of Afghanistan. And the idea that the Afghan military should be blamed for this, do you know how many casualties the Afghan military took in an average year? More than the United States did in 20. When you're not getting paid on a regular basis, when you're not getting fuel, when no one is supplying you with ammunition, and yet you're still showing up to the fight, how dare us for having to blame these people for not having the audacity to be able to survive a Taliban onslaught? No. What we need to be doing right now, and what I am appalled that the president didn't say, was we need to be talking about how we're going to get every single one of these people out. Because let's be abundantly clear. People like me looked these people in the eye and made them a promise. We promised them that in their time of need, we would take care of them. How do you ever expect anyone to ever trust us again if we don't do that now while we can? And I'm sick and tired of trying to defer to the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan on what we're going to do. We're the United States of America. They're terrified of us. I have Afghans on the ground right now who are telling me they're going door to door in Kabul and they're making lists of people who used to work with us. They're telling them with smiles on their face, evil smiles, that they're going to be back from them once we leave. So we either take them now or these people are going to die. I've been trying to tell anyone who will listen. This is a never again moment in the making. This is an administration that seems to be a profound champion and defender of human rights. Well, sometimes human rights have to be defended at the barrel end of a gun. The Taliban are a modern version of the Nazis. And if this was Dresden, do you think if this was Dunkirk, do you think British yachting pilots, the British captains that were sailing their boats heroically into Dunkirk, do you think they were asking on the beaches if the people they were picking up were Brits or French, or do you think they were just trying to get people away from the Nazis? Every Afghan we leave behind is going to be left behind to a horrible existence. And if we don't take them now while we can, that is as much on us as it is on the Taliban, who will hang or behead them.
Wow, that was something Brian Williams didn't expect. In his experience being shot at in Iraq, he never saw anything like that before. This gentleman is 100% right, and I want to add something to what he said. I've been watching some people on TV, people I respect, say, let's just get the Americans out, and that's all we care about right now, period. Well, we do care, and the Americans need to come out. We need to find our fellow citizens and get them out, and I have my own thought on that. It's not going to be pleasant. But the idea, some of them said, that since we can't vet all these Afghans, that we really shouldn't be bringing them back, is simply unacceptable to me. Now, they have lists. This gentleman has his own list. The military has lists. They know who assisted us. Those lists are not just in Afghanistan. Those lists are in Washington, at the Pentagon, and other places. Those lists should have been drawn up a long, long time ago, people we need to get out of there. And so the idea that we shouldn't have as a priority, number one priority is American citizens, but a priority getting these people out is unacceptable to me, and I'm hearing it all over TV. That we should. Now, first of all, from a perspective of character and morality, when we ask people to help us find Osama bin Laden, help us fight the Taliban, help us keep the Taliban away and so forth, in order to protect our shores from the attack that we already had on 9/11, and then we turn our backs on them, that is not acceptable. That's not what Americans do, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just stop. Is this not horrendous? People know what's ahead if they can't get out. People know what's ahead if they can't get out. It's horrendous. The kind of lives they're going to be subjected to if they get to live at all. And many of them having worked with us. It really, I have to be honest with you. I can't sleep at night thinking about this. It's the truth. I just can't. And as the program goes on, the consequences of this for the United States are just beyond belief. Go ahead. I want you to stop right there. Some of these people hanging on here take off with the airplane. And way, way up, fall off onto the tarmac. And one witness said the sound was unbelievable, the loudness of it. When flesh and bones, when a human being falls from heights like a couple of these human beings did, you turn into jello. Every bone in your body disintegrates. You become a pancake of jello. It is a horrific thing.